Hello and welcome to the third in our series of webinars. So we're looking at writing a course report. So in the last webinar we looked at how to create the course itself. Now we're looking at what happens once the course is completed. In this webinar the plan is that we're going to have a look at, first of all, the provider and course staff area, then about how to find the course, and then obviously how to start your course reports. The process then of creating the course report as a step-by-step guide, and then we will look at the results, so specifically looking at skills schemes and leadership training course results, and then separately from that the leadership assessment courses, and then finally just a little bit about reassessments. There will be at some point separate guidance to look in more detail at how to write defer and fail reports. I don't really touch on that in this webinar because it's obviously quite an important element and it needs quite a bit of time to be considered. So we're going to leave that for this webinar. So the provider and course staff area, we have the Mountain Training England and Mountain Training Cymru sites. There are URLs on the PowerPoint here. So obviously you can't click on the page now, but the PowerPoint is connected on the website, so you can use those links if you want. So I would also recommend is possibly having yourself a bookmark to these pages so that you can refer to them as and when you need to. So here is the provider and course staff area for Mountain Training England for this example. For today's webinar, the one that we're interested in using is going to be CMS and course reporting, so it's this one here. So under this title, you will find pretty much everything you need for being able to write your course. We've already looked at this in the previous webinar. So the one that we're going to be using mostly is this create a course report section. So I'm going to start as well by going into Cowboy Adventures, our dummy accounts. And first of all, I need to find my course. So we're going to look under courses, and as you'll notice, the first thing that happens when you go onto courses is if you've got no courses planned for the future, it looks like it's empty. Basically, this will go from the date that you're looking at it on. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to backdate it to find any courses that have happened in the past. So for example, now I've got quite a few here where I've been working on or helping providers. So I'm going to take one of the Lowland Leader assessment courses, and I am going to use this one. So here's a Lowland Leader course that took place a while ago, so I am now writing my course report for this particular one. So to create a course report, you'll go to the Bookings tab, and then you have your list of people who've attended the course, and then underneath it says create course report. Before you click on this, I would recommend you just go through and check the details of the course, make sure that it's correct, that there aren't any errors there, incorrect dates or anything like that. And I would also very carefully check the actual bookings themselves. Make sure that everybody who is actually on the course is on this particular page and that it is the correct person that matches the correct ID number. So I am going to now create my course report. At this point, I'm not going to be able to go back and make any changes to the course itself. So to create a course report, you need to be able to choose your course director. This will make a list of the course directors that are linked to your provider account. Your course director does need to be linked to your provider account to be able to create the course report, to write the course report. So in this case, it's myself. It does give you a nice little reminder just to say, have you checked everything? Once it's created the course report, it will look like this. So as you can see, there are crosses for sections that need completing. So the director, if we start here, is myself. If you're wanting to change your director, you can do so. You can tick this button here and it'll basically take you back to that list of directors again and you can swap them out. So you just click change director, you choose your new person. So for example, let's say we'll ask Simon to do the course in my place. And there you go, it swapped it over for me. I am now actually going to put that back. So I am the course director, therefore I am the person who will fill this form out. Alongside this person, it may have been that you had additional staff members. Currently, there's no one to show as being an additional staff member, but if I wanted to add an extra person who helped provide this course, this is where you would add them. It's worth noting additional staff members for any of the skills schemes do need to be approved tutors for that skills scheme. So it can be that you can bring people in who will staff a course who are not regularly linked to your course provider, and you can add them on here. Do check with the provider and course staff area that they do hold the relevant experience and qualifications. So if I show you quickly where you'd find that. So we're on the provider and course staff area, and the bit I'm interested in this time is your scheme information. So as we're running a Lowland Leader, we'll have a look at this one on this occasion. So it's a training course. Here it says additional course staff award. So additional course staff must hold the Hill and Moorland Leader or higher, and please see the course staff requirements in the awards quality manual. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to have a look at the quality manual. In the quality manual, you will find information that will help with running your courses. So at the moment, we're looking at course staff requirements. So you can here see a list of the requirements of your course staff. So this is what you do need to consider when you're trying to timetable your staffing. We were looking at a training course and we were looking at the Lowland Leader. So essential requirements is to have held the relevant or higher award for at least 12 months. You also need to be able to see that the person has been active within the scope of the award. So we're looking at 20 sessions within the previous 3 years. There are also some desirables. So these are things that are going to help that staff member be a particularly good staff member. So any of these things is going to enhance them as a person. So you can see here as well, you've got the same for assessment courses. Before a staff member can work on an assessment course, they should also have experience of working on 2 training courses. Do check that that person has the relevant experience of training courses as well. Okay, so if we come back to the course report, if we've got any additional staff members and that they're fitting the criteria that's required, they can then be added here. So we have our director and we have our staff. If you're having someone who's observing a course that isn't actively a staff member on that course, you can add them here. So add an observer. As with the staff and the director, always try and add those people based on their candidate ID as opposed to their name, just in case you get the wrong person. So if we go back to the details page, so this is where we're going to record most of the pertinent information to the course. So had you add staff members, you'd see the number there would be the number of added staff members. If you'd added observers, same goes there. Then we have dates linked to this particular course, so when it was created, the start and end date of the course, when you started writing this course report, and by the end you will also have when the course was submitted, which will come here, so when you finally press submit, and the final one, when it's processed by Mountain Training, you'll have the final date here. So we're going to start with the day reports. When we're adding day reports, you can do this as you go along. If you're out on a course, each evening you could be writing the day reports as you go along. That helps to keep it fresh, but you don't have to do it that way if it's easier for you to wait until the end. Check the date is correct for the day that you're writing. We then need to fill in the venue, the value bases, and so on. So venue, for this one, we're talking about the general area. So if I use the provider and course staff area, you can see here now, so we've got a general area that is Birkdale Commons. So we're up in Yorkshire. Copy, and I'm just going to paste that in. So this is our venue, Birkdale Common. Valley bases, so that's where you started your day, so where you did your initial briefing. So again, let's have a look at what CMS and course reporting has. We have a cafe in Kirkby Stephen. Copy, paste. So syllabus covered. So in this section, for a skills course, you can keep it quite simple and just put the titles of the sections. For a leadership course, you do need to put a little bit more information. So to be specific, you can put the syllabus points. So for example, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, etc. Again, if I go to the course reporting page, so syllabus covered here, you can see the key aspects of that particular day. So like it says, if you wanted to, you could have a Word document with all of the syllabus elements listed in it, and you can just copy and paste them over, or you could take it directly from the handbook itself. That way it's coming straight from the horse's mouth. Copy, and let's paste that in. For example, on this day now, we were looking at leaderships, we were looking at hazards on steep ground, navigation, access to environment. What I would say at this point is these are clearly taken from a mountain leader syllabus, and I'm writing a course report for a lowland leader. So do be aware, make sure you are using the correct syllabus points from the correct syllabus when you fill out this section. So I am going to just leave it there just so you can see that there are multiple points that are going to be added in each day. You're not just necessarily going to focus on one point, you will focus on many. We have our syllabus covered points and we have linked them to the syllabus correctly. I now go on to my notes section. So in the notes section for a skills course, this can be quite simple. So it needs to just represent what the day was like. So if we have another look at the CMS and course reporting area, we can see for a skills course, for example, they've said navigated in poor weather to 9 standards, returned via Pot Hill, a meeting with the council access officer, promoted a good discussion. So it's quite basic, but it gives you the information you need to be able to get a good idea of what that day was like. So for a leadership scheme, you do need to make sure that the notes section is a little bit more detailed, that you can get a really good grasp of what the day was like. So the example they've got here, followed Gribbin up from Cwmidwal, walked over Gyledurfawr and down via Devil's Kitchen using a 1 to 40k map. So that tells you a lot about where they were, and as well as sort of like the navigation that they were working on with the 1 to 40, for example. I'm just going to copy and paste that. Copy and paste. So that's quite a small, succinct description. You can go into a little bit more detail. You can add more points if you like. Key with this is to make sure that you are being clear, that you're being concise, you're being factual, and that you are putting things in a way that is easy to read. So you can see here, it says, please note, do not add anything in the day reports that could, in the candidate or participant's opinion, compromise the validity of the course or be considered grounds for complaints. So for example, if you were to write what's written there, we only had time for a couple of navigation legs each, everyone was finding it really hard to understand the skills involved. That's leaving it very open to interpretation. So if you imagine that a candidate on that course was to see that note, they could turn around very easily and say, well, I wasn't able to show you my skills involved because we didn't do enough legs. Had you done more legs, I'd have had more of an opportunity to show my skill. So that's immediately grounds for them to come back to us as a complaint. If you have points like this that you do wish to raise, it would be more appropriate to add that to a confidential comments section. That way then, if the information is more sensitive or there is feedback that is pertaining to an individual, it would be more appropriate in the confidential comments section. The notes section itself, so the section we're looking at right now, should be factual. It should be linked to the course itself as opposed to the individuals involved. So once we've finished writing our notes section, we then go on to the linked staff for that day. So had I added more people to that list, I'd be able to tick the individuals that I'd used as staff members. In this case, it's just myself, which is absolutely fine. So I'm going to tick myself as the staff member linked to that day. We then have the weather. So this is a nice little tick box thing. It's nice and simple. You just put what was going on with the weather. So I'm creating a nice, lovely sunny day. Save. Do remember to press save at the end of each of your day reports. It can be very frustrating if you've written a large amount in the notes section and then suddenly it's gone. So we have our first day reports. We would then carry on adding our day reports in the same way. So the next section then is the confidential comments. So this is the section I mentioned earlier for putting in things that maybe are more sensitive. The example I gave before was the not enough legs and skills involved one. So if I just copy and paste that. So this would be appropriate for this section as opposed to the notes section from above. It may also be the case that you had to change the venue and that you just want to make us aware that this change took place, or it could be that in the lead up to the course you had a conversation with Mountain Training and you've been asked to add a comment into here. You can add those comments. It also could be the case that you have some sort of feedback that's specific to an individual. So for example, if an individual had to withdraw from a course, then their information may go here. Anything that's here is a statement. If you have any questions of Mountain Training, do get in touch. And if you're not sure how to fill out this section or any of the other sections, ring Mountain Training, have a chat with one of the technical officers, and they'll be able to advise you on what to include or what not to include in any particular section if you're really not quite sure. So anything you write here, as with the other sections, press save. So that's saved. Just to recap with the confidential comments, so at Mountain Training, we encourage you to use the confidential comments box. It is only viewable by yourselves and your linked course staff and by Mountain Training. So you can include any sort of like notable events, general overview, anything like that that you want to be able to put in. The only thing I would say is when you're writing the confidential comments, they're not directly visible by candidates. However, if they were to ask for a disclosure of their information through GDPR, we would have to disclose anything that's written here. So please do be careful that you are writing something that you would be comfortable with people being able to see in that situation. So the next section we're going to look at is the possible results for a course. So skill schemes and the leadership training courses are pretty similar. So they have the same titles for both. So I'm going to talk about them both at the same time. So when you first create a course, the one you see is awaiting accreditation. This is default. It's the one that you need to then change to suit whatever happened with the individual in question. Most people, you're probably going to be putting completed. So this shows that the candidate attended and completed either the skills or training course and that they have all the prerequisite requirements for the training courses. You then have the option of not yet completed, withdrew, or did not show. I'm actually going to start at the bottom. So did not show. This is the one that if you have a candidate who's booked onto the course but just did not show from the outset, so they never actually attended, don't delete them off the course, leave them there, but mark them as did not show. You then have withdrew. So this is for when a candidate has withdrawn themselves from the course partway through. They haven't completed the course in full. With these, do put a note to explain why this was the case in confidential comments. If a candidate has withdrawn themselves from the course, they will need to do a full course again if they want to be accredited with an attendance for that particular course. The last one then is not yet completed. So this one's it's similar to withdrew in the sense that the person has basically not completed the required hours for the course. This is used for candidates that for some reason they haven't completed, but they do intend to come back and to complete the course. It's very important in these cases that an action plan is created for the candidate and that we have really good details recorded in the confidential comments. Basically, there needs to be enough information that that person can come back and it is perfectly clear what needs to be completed for them to carry on. They do need to return to the original provider, so if they've not completed a course, they need to go back to the same person to complete it, and this should be within 3 months. If you're not sure on writing one of these, I would definitely recommend that you do speak to the technical officer beforehand. So it may be the first time you come across this, do get in touch with your technical officer and get advice on how best to fill this out for that candidate to be able to benefit from it the best they can. So these are the main results that you would get for the skills scheme. The leadership scheme, you will see another one on the list, this exemption. This is only issued by Mountain Training. So these are the possible results for a training course. We then have an assessment course. So possible results for assessment, we have 4 main results. We also then have our not yet complete, withdrew, and did not show. So the 4 results that you can have, you've got your pass, you have your defer or defer it just for first aid, or you have your fail. So a pass result, this is for the successful candidates. So this is the result where they've attended the full course, the required number of hours, they've shown that they've met the prerequisite requirement, they have the experience necessary, and that they have met all of the requirements of the syllabus, and that you're happy with them as competent individuals. You would press pass. This is also the case for an expedition skills module in the indoor climbing assistant. Both of these are modules that have training and assessment in the one course. So again, if the candidate has been deemed competent, they've attended the course in full, you would give these a pass as well. You then have your 2 defers and your fail. So with a deferral or a fail, there will also need to be an additional document written for those candidates, a defer or fail report. I will talk about these in the future, but it's not part of this webinar. It's an important topic and it does need to be looked at independently. It does need to be looked at on its own. The deferrals are when you've got a candidate who has generally performed well, they've shown the necessary experience and attributes, but there isn't complete proficiency. So it may be that certain aspects of the syllabus haven't been met fully, or that there's a lack of experience that's been identified, and it's felt that that candidate just needs a little bit more time to go away to gain that experience and to come back and have a reassessment on those particular elements. So with a deferral, you will also write your deferral report, which is split into 3 sections where you'll look at how they've done, how they can progress, and then how they should be reassessed. The deferral for a first aid only, it's only for a person who has a missing first aid certificate. If there is any other area where they're lacking competency so that they would have been deferred, you would use defer as opposed to defer first aid. This is literally only that you have not seen a first aid certificate or they are not first aid trained at present. The final one then is the fail. So this is used when a candidate's performance has been generally weak, they haven't got the necessary experience or attributes that they need for that particular qualification. So in this case, they would require a complete assessment course. So these are then the results that you can attribute to an assessment course. So if I go back to my course report from earlier, so we're on the course report from earlier. This is the first page which had all of the details. I would then go onto the results tab. And in this case, because it's an assessment course, I would be looking at your pass, defer, fail, or deferral for a first aid, not yet completed, withdrawn, or did not show. So in this case, we'll say that Nicola has passed, so she's met all the requirements of the syllabus and the experience that's needed, and her grade's now been updated on there. So once you've added the result for each of your candidates, you've checked and made sure it's right. So if you have given a deferral or a fail, that you have written your additional comments, you can then go on to submit this course. So before you submit, just quickly go back through, check all your details are correct, that you're happy that you've got all your syllabus points, that your notes are correct, you've got the right staff members allocated to the correct days, that you have all of the day reports. In this case, I've only done 1, but you would, for most courses, have multiple day reports there. That you have all of the information that you feel is required in the confidential comments. And once you're happy with all of that, that your results are correct, that you have the correct director, you've linked all your correct staff members and observers, you can then press submit. So there's a submit button at the top here. There is also one down the bottom. So press submit. It will then say comment saved successfully. Once the course has been submitted by you, it will then be sent on to Mountain Training. So I'm just going to go back to my PowerPoint. So following the course, you will have had a discussion with your candidates or your course participants. So the participants on the skills course, you've probably given them advice on how to follow on, where to go next, what they might want to do in the future. And with the leadership schemes, you will have debriefed your candidates in detail before you've submitted your course reports. So as a tutor or director, you are required to submit the course report to CMS within 21 days of course completion. So the 21 days does give that little bit of leeway. So if, for example, you have a candidate who has arrived on a training course, their D-log, they've shown that they have the experience, but that's not necessarily within their digital logbook, you can give them that little bit of extra time to be able to complete their D-log before you have to submit the course report. It doesn't have to be the day after the course. And it gives them that little bit of leeway, it gives them that flexibility in those exceptional circumstances where they've come without a complete D-log. If this is the case and that you have got an individual whose work you're waiting for, do let everybody who was a candidate on that course know the situation and know that they may have to wait a little while for the course report so they understand what's going on. So once you've got everything in place and the course report has been written, you've submitted your course report and you've done so within 21 days, the next stage then is that it will go to a technical officer with mountain training. That technical officer then has up to 10 days to process the course report in line with our quality assurance. If there's anything in the course report that's not quite right or that they want to check up on, they will either get in touch with you or they'll unsubmit the course report with some notes on what needs to be done. You can then resubmit the course report once you've completed that. So once the course is all good and the technical officer is happy that it's in line with quality assurance, they will then process that course report. At that point, CMS is updated and the candidate will receive an email letting them know their course outcome, and their CMS account will be updated. So they will be able to see straight away the results of that particular course. Following on from that, the skills scheme and any assessment courses will also generate a certificate. The certificate is generated once all of these points have been completed. However, what I would suggest that you do when you're debriefing your candidates right back at the end of the course, do make sure that their delivery address on the CMS account is correct. The certificates are processed in the office and they are sent out to the account address, the delivery address there. And it would be a shame if their details are incorrect or not up to date, that they wouldn't receive their certificate. So last thing I wanted to mention in brief is reassessments. There will be a lot more information about this when we talk about defer and fail reports, but I did want to just cover it very, very quickly just so you're aware. So when a reassessment does arise and that you are dealing with one of these for a candidate, you would treat it very similarly to a normal course. So you would create the course as you would have created a normal course. You would create a course report in a similar way. The things that are slightly different are the fact that you would have a deferral report that you're basing your reassessment on, and as well that you do need to add a little bit more information in there. So it's written here, the confidential comments, you would add an extra little point just saying that it is a reassessment. But just to be aware, the admin side of processing them is the same as processing a normal course. So if I come back to the points that I wanted to cover in this webinar, we have spoken about the provider and course staff area, and I've been through now how to write the course report and as well the results that will be linked to that particular course report, whether it's a skills scheme or whether it's a leadership training or assessment course. I've briefly covered reassessments, and like I've said before, there will be another webinar where we will look very specifically at defer and fail reports and at reassessments, and the information for those will be a lot more detailed in there. For now, the information for these is available for you in the provider and course staff area, so I'm just going to go there quickly now. So in the CMS and course reporting area, all of the information about writing courses, writing course reports, writing the results, and as well any defer or fail reports are available. So just to remind you, here are the web links for the provider and course staff areas for both England and for Cymru. If you have any questions, please do get in touch, and I hope this webinar has been useful for you. Thank you very much, and I will speak to you again soon.